Hi, and welcome back to Stormwater and You 2008. As you recall, we did a series of shows in 2007, talked about stormwater issues, and today we're going to go back and continue to give you pointers on stormwater issues that pertain to you and your family. This is an interactive series of public service programs designed to provide public information and public education on stormwater quantity and quality issues. It's broadcast on Brunswick Area Television Network, Channel 21, for the citizens of Brunswick City and Brunswick Hills Township. They're produced by myself, Ed Kelly. Let's go back and review what we showed in 2007. And the first program we talked about was how stormwater affects the public sanitary sewers, and explained as infiltration and inflow. Program 2 discussed how the Medina County sanitary engineers work toward reducing the stormwater flows in the public sewer systems. In Program 3, we discussed an overview of what's called Phase 2 stormwater. All programs in each series invite public input to the type of problems that residents may experience. You may email to edkelly2005@msn.com or write Brunswick Area Television Studios. And now let's get started and find out, why do we have municipal stormwater programs? Why does the regulatory people in Ohio, that is Ohio EPA, want us to look at our storm sewer systems? We know that stormwater discharges are generated by runoff, rain from land and impervious areas, which are hard surfaces like paved streets, parking lots, and building rooftops during rainfall and snow events. And they often contain pollutants in quantities that could affect the water quality of area streams in our area and also ultimately Lake Erie. There are approximately 472 entities under 271 general permits, including all villages and townships in Ohio, and they are required to, like us, reduce the discharges of pollutants of concern and protect water quality. Now, today's program, we're going to cover two components of a stormwater management program, specifically public education and outreach and public participation and involvement. Even in these two areas, the regulatory people at Ohio EPA expect us to track our progress with what they call measurable goals, or how we provide public education and outreach to the community, along with how public participation and involvement in the stormwater program are required of each municipality. And again, why is public education and outreach necessary? EPA would like us to inform the public because they feel an informed and knowledgeable community is crucial to the success of the stormwater management program, because it helps to ensure that we have public support, because it is needed to understand the need and benefits of a stormwater program, as well as making the public aware of what's going on in the stormwater issues. The public becomes aware of personal responsibilities expected of them and protect and improve the quality of area waters. Some of the municipalities in this area, what we call pollutants of concern, are some listed here. One of which is sediment, and we all know that when it rains, especially in construction areas, when there's ground uncovered, that rainfall mixes with the dirt and creates sediment that can pollute the local area streams. So in the picture shown at the top, you can see what's called a silt curtain or silt fence, which is there to protect that area and contain any sediment from running down into the area creeks. The second, nutrients, can come from any number of sources: pathogens or germs, oil and grease, herbicides and pesticides. And as you can see in the pictures, the septic tank is a major concern in this area. Many of the residents still have septic tanks, and as well as fertilizers and pesticides. We have to be real careful about overdoing pesticides and herbicides in our fertilization. Now, let's go back and say, where does this rain or the stormwater come from, and how does it interact with from the clouds down to the ground, to the lakes, and then back again into the cycle which we call the hydrologic or water cycle. And It begins at evaporation, and we'll list all of these, and then we'll watch in the photo as it interacts and shows you how it goes from evaporation, condensation, transport, precipitation, transpiration, groundwater, and finally runoff. So now you see in the clouds the condensation as it transports over land, the precipitation falls on the area, and eventually transpiration from vegetation and groundwater flows to the area lakes. Runoff finally contributes water, and the cycle begins again. Evaporation again up into the clouds, the condensation gathers and is transported to an area. It rains in the form of precipitation, and transpiration from vegetation back to the groundwater, and then again runoff finally into the area of the lake. So these are what's called the hydrologic or the water cycle. And that cycle in the bottom lake areas and all the area streams, we call those a watershed. So to explain, a watershed is an area of land that catches rain and snow and then drains into a stream or lake. Some watersheds are very large, while others are just a few acres. Most drain into larger watersheds. Watersheds provide water for drinking, irrigation, industry, and recreation. Healthy watersheds are important for a healthy environment. Our local watershed is the Rocky River watershed. The area streams from the city of Brunswick as well as Brunswick Hills flow to Rocky River, ultimately to Lake Erie. One thing we should all remember, that no matter where we live, we all live downstream of a source. So no matter where you live in a watershed. A watershed is simply an area of land that drains to a specific point of water, whether it's a lake, stream, river, or ocean. Each small creek or lake in Ohio has a certain area of land that drains into it. Activities in the smaller watersheds ultimately have an impact on the larger ones. Although residents may not think about it, their individual actions affect everyone downstream in the watershed. And as you can see in the pictures on the right, littering in the streets or areas eventually flow in the rain to a catch basin. It may flow into a lake or river where your youngster or fish are out swimming. So we have to be cognizant that, again, we all live downstream of something. Now let's talk about some outreach activities. In other words, let's see what every homeowner does at some point and look at some of the things that may affect the watershed. And let's work from the left side of the photo, and we see a youngster washing paintbrushes out in the driveway. And as he rinses the paint, it flows down to the curb and eventually drains to a stream. The second in the center there is the trash overflowing onto the street. We don't think about that, but that trash, when it rains or wind carries it, ends up in area streams also. And as we move to the right, spraying chemicals on your lawn. When you overspray and it rains, these chemicals wash into the area streams. And again, as we move to the right, changing oil in the driveway. We don't think that that's a big issue on our property to change oil, but every once in a while we spill a little oil in the driveway. Then the next thing we do on the right of that is to wash our driveway off, and where does that water go? Again, it drains to the area streams. And then finally we see a compilation of what has occurred after any and all of these things, little actions of ours out in the neighborhood. What happens is we pollute our waterways. So this is a public education program designed to bring to light some things that you may do daily or in and around your house that may affect the stream downstream from you and also eventually your drinking water. And now what can you do? No matter where you live, but especially in our area, ditches and swales convey stormwater, runoff from roads, roofs, and other hard surfaces. If you have a ditch in front of your house or to the rear or across the street, consider that. Some are designed to simply convey water from point A to point B. For example, from a road to a stormwater pond or to an area stream. Others, particularly those lined with grass, are meant to filter and absorb pollutants in the runoff first, then convey the water. So we like to say, go with the flow, please don't litter ditches. Some of the other activities that go on in Ohio and in this area are storm drain stenciling. And the idea behind stenciling the area's catch basins or storm drains is to notify residents and people in the area that when it rains, water flows into this device and eventually either drains to a stream, drains to a river, or drains to a lake. So we go around and we put little markers or stencil the words dump no waste, drains to river, drains to streams, and your neighborhood groups, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, and other organizations get together and form little committees that go out and volunteer to do these things, and that's called public involvement as well as public education. So other things that you can do as a resident of your town or city in the area is to join your local stormwater committee. The Stormwater Committee is a voluntary group of interested citizens who meet regularly to accomplish the goals and responsibilities of the Stormwater Management Program. So call your local township or city and ask how to join your local Stormwater Committee. One other thing that is ongoing is to help with a stream cleanup or adopt a stream. In many of the areas, just 2 weeks ago in Medina, there was a stream cleanup on Champion Creek. It was about 15 volunteers that came out at various ages and walked through the creeks, picked up debris that was blown into the ditch or into the stream directly, just debris that flies off from a picnic that you may have. And you can see on the lower left, some of the debris becomes quite extensive. Just to notify you, the Brunswick Hills Township Stormwater Commission is planning a stream cleanup in Autumnwood subdivision in Brunswick Hills later in the year. And the other thing that's interesting along with the stream cleanup is to learn about stream water qualities. So as you're out in the stream tromping through the creeks, picking up debris, you can stop and look at some of the sites, understand how the water quality is affected just by looking at a rock like this gentleman is doing. Under the rock we have various forms of bugs that eventually become fish food. So they are indicators of water quality. So the more bugs you have, the more diverse numbers and kinds of bugs, the better the water quality in the stream. The other thing to pay attention to is what we call the vegetative buffer. As you look at the top photo, you'll see the trees that line the banks of the stream. This protects the soil and contains it so that sediment doesn't become a problem in the area stream. On the lower photo, you see when there is no vegetative buffer, sediment can't get into the stream, cause coating and fouling of the water. Another point that you should know about is dissolved oxygen and temperature. In other words, it's important that the water in each creek contain amount of dissolved oxygen because that promotes the growth of bugs, frogs, fish, and cooler water can contain more dissolved oxygen than warm water. On the graph at the right, this is a time lapse that goes from morning till evening again, and the lower periods in the pink area in the center are the middle of the night, and you see that the lowest DO means it's very dark, the sunlight isn't helping produce dissolved oxygen, and then as it climbs into the daytime, the graph rises, sunlight produces the algae that spurs dissolved oxygen. A riparian zone is the interface between and flowing a surface water body. Plant communities along the river margins are called riparian vegetation, and this vegetation again protects the banks as well as supplies the food for the bugs that live in the stream. Riparian trees provide direct shade and prevent elevation of water temperature. Again, the cooler the water, the more dissolved oxygen, the more bugs, ultimately the more fish, and the more fun. One of the things that is contained in the area streams are nutrients or things that bugs can eat, food chain. Algae, it's called, are primary producers of organic matter which aquatic animals depend on, either directly or indirectly, through the food chain. So the bugs need algae to grow. However, too many nutrients or too much algae can deplete the oxygen in the water and cause a problem for some of these aquatic animals. Now, some of the three photos we show below are some of the things that give us sometimes too much nutrients, and that is pet waste, overuse of lawn fertilizer, and overwashing of vehicles that have soap and detergents and scum layers that eventually flow into the stream. These things can concentrate the algae and cause problems. Some of the bugs that I mentioned that live in streams are called macroinvertebrates, or aquatic bugs. And it's important to understand the quality of the streams by just understanding how many bugs are there. Some aquatic bugs are more sensitive to pollution than others. If a stream only has organisms that can tolerate pollution and the pollution-tolerant organisms are missing, a pollution problem is pretty much likely. Some of these bugs you would find in the area stream, and again, reminder, bugs are fish food, so the more bugs in our creeks and streams, the more fish we'll have. Some of the other things that you'll see in your area creeks are what we call amphibians. Amphibian species and other reptile species live in the water or must visit there to survive. So I'm sure everyone has seen frogs and some salamanders as well as turtles in the area creeks. And then ultimately, as I mentioned, those bugs supply the food in the food chain for fish. And for recreation in our area streams, fishing is very popular in Ohio. So one of the things that goes along with fishing is having trees, as we mentioned earlier, around the riparian area or on the edges of the creeks and rivers. The things that we need to have are trees because they promote cool water. One of the other things that is becoming very useful, especially in controlling water, quantity of water, is the use of rain barrels and rain gardens. Basically, rain barrels shown at the top, the green on the left side and the white one on the right. Basically, you allow your downspouts from your roof areas, when it rains, for that water to go into a barrel and slowly disperse, which slows what we call the peak of the stormwater from affecting downstream flooding areas. The second thing, rain gardens, the pictures in the lower two photos, show the white downspout on the left protruding from the house, and then entering a small area, there's actually a garden. So you're self-watering on one hand, so you're watering, but not only that, you're detaining the stormwater or slowing it down, so it doesn't cause flooding problems downstream. We say in the stormwater business, as public education and public involvement, participate and get involved. Volunteer or provide community service, like joining stream cleanups. Have an educational display contest in your organization or school. Report blocked catch basins in your neighborhood, because you can help with reducing the flooding in that way. And also, as we mentioned earlier, pick up after your pets so that some of the water quality is improved in the area. The other thing on the quantity issues, and as far as stormwater, to help prevent flooding and water quality problems in your neighborhood, maintain your home's gutters and downspouts. This will protect your home from having flooding problems, your roof areas, along the edge of your house. As you can see in the photo above, without downspouts on the right, that water can migrate right into the ground and possibly enter your basement or your basement walls. And even on the left side of that top photo, we show a downspout that is disconnected very close to the house, and unless there's a sufficient grade or place for that water to move away from the house, that water can also migrate to the basement walls or into your basement. So it's important to maintain the gutters and the downspouts at your home. And importantly, as I mentioned, grading, it's important that you make sure that the ground slopes away from your house so that when rainwater does come off your roof and from your downspouts, it is deterred away from your home and captured in the grassy area of your home or directed to a storm sewer. In this way, you're protecting your own home from flooding, as well as expressing the stormwater to the proper destination. On the water quality side, many of us in this Brunswick area have septic tanks. So we recommend that your septic tank be cleaned regularly, and as well as disposing safely of hazardous household products. There are numbers to call both in Brunswick City and Brunswick Hills so that you can ask where the place to go with hazardous household products. The most important thing we want in the end is to inform the public that we want to have clean water in our area. This is a clean stream in Brunswick Hills during a rain, yet it still has crystal clear effects. There's vegetative banks that help clean the water, and there are very little, if any, sediment passing through. So these are the things that we strive to have, clean watersheds. Once again, we'd like to thank you for your interest in viewing this public service program. My name is Ed Kelly. We plan to have future Stormwater and You programs, and these will deal with other components of a stormwater management program.